I'm Bill Cotrofeld. I've been interested in minerals since the 8th grade, which is a long time ago now. And I'm also one of 2 charter members left of the Capital District Mineral Club affiliated with the New York State Museum over in Albany. My high school buddies and I were in on the organization of that club in 1955-56, and I believe we're the only 2 charter members left in that club. I was at the Georgi Museum many years ago and knew there was a mineral collection here, but I had forgotten pretty much about it until one day I got a call from Wendy Bordwell, asked me to come over here. She wanted to know something about the mineral collection and also what to do with it during the renovations of this building. So I came over and we ran through it. I enlisted a couple of the members of the Mineral Club at Albany to come and help me. We removed all the minerals from the cabinets, got them all packed away so the building would be, could be renovated. And then when the renovation was complete, we came back over many evenings and put the minerals back in the cases one by one, which is a considerable amount of time and effort. A lot of the labels for the minerals were almost obliterated as to where they came from and what mines and so on. So we made up new labels. Some of the labels were in Spanish, but we were able to decipher what the Spanish said. So right now what we have here, Mr. Georgi was a geologist and he was also a mining engineer. Met mostly in South America by the looks of things, and he had been over the world by the looks of this collection and collected other places also, but mainly South America. This collection I would rate as absolute museum quality. A lot of the specimens in this collection, the only other place that I know of that you might even find anything comparable would be the Smithsonian or the American Museum of Natural History in New York City. Some of these items aren't even over in the New York State Museum in Albany. So it's really an incredible collection. The first case here is a general collection of some of the minerals that Mr. Georgi collected when he was mining engineer down in Bolivia and the rest of South America. And there's some uranium minerals in here. There's other minerals of titanium and lead and zinc, iron ore, things like that. Just general collection of that kind of stuff. There are also some copper minerals in here. And a lot of people don't realize, but even some of these beautiful crystals that might be in here were actually, to the miners, just stuff they crushed up and made into whatever metals. So that is this cabinet, just a general collection of a lot of different items that Dr. Georgi collected. And then we can go on to the next cabinet. In this cabinet, what we have are some incredible crystals of a mineral called cassiterite. And it's a major ore of tin. And again, it's from the mines where Mr. Georgi was the mining engineer down in Bolivia. There's also stibnite in here, which is an ore of antimony, a rare metal, and some others. There's some actual gold ore in here. And down on the very bottom is a piece of malachite. The location is unknown, but at some point it was highly polished. And on top of that, there's also some native gold up in here and native copper, which are relatively rare in mining today. So this cabinet is more of the metals, a lot of them crystallized, and all of the places that these minerals are from are at this time completely inaccessible. A lot of the underground mines have flooded with water after they closed, so they're not accessible to anyone to collect, or the properties have been reclaimed and covered over. So a lot of these minerals that you see here, what is here may be the last of what you'll ever see unless someone comes upon another collection like this to sell on the internet or whatever. Okay. On the shelf here is amethyst, which is a purple form of quartz crystals, and it's all from Brazil. Right now, Brazil is the most famous place where this amethyst comes, and these are excellent representations of some of the amethyst that comes from Brazil. And it's still coming over from this day because they are exporting a lot of this as mineral collection stuff or stuff for jewelry and things like that. In this cabinet, we have a lot of interesting minerals. Some of them have names that even most mineral collectors have never heard of, and we even had to research and find out, is this the correct name for this item? And some of this stuff is relatively rare. Some of the interesting stuff in here, there's some minerals in here that we weren't sure as to what they were ores of until we actually looked it up. And a lot of them were never really mined separately for ores of lead, zinc, antimony, whatever else. They were just minerals that were found to be different than any other composition of elements. So they had made a name for them. And like I said, a lot of us that have been collecting minerals for years have never heard of them. We even had to look them up ourselves to make sure that that was the correct spelling of that. The one interesting thing in this cabinet is there's some iron ore down on the bottom, and it's like rounded masses of an iron ore called hematite, and it's from the very famous mines in Cumberland, England, which had iron ore there for centuries back. And I assume that either came to Mr. Georgi as a gift, or perhaps maybe he was in England at some time and actually received that mineral there. So there's a lot of really rare items in this particular cabinet. And the next cabinet over, again, there's a lot of different minerals from Bolivia and the rest of South America in here. And there is another piece in here from Cumberland, England, a little bit different than that first one. And there's a really great group of lead ore called galena in the bottom here that's really crystallized and on top of quartz and calcite crystals, a really showy specimen. Then there's some things in here. The one really rare item is a mineral called Danburite, which ironically, the first location ever in the entire world was Danbury, Connecticut. This particular piece was in the collection, and it actually came from a mine down in Bolivia. So I didn't know whether that was the correct location or not until we researched that and found out, yes, there was a place in Bolivia called the San Francisco mine where a small amount of this danburite was also found there. A very unusual mineral. Down on the floor is a mineral called cassiterite, and it's all crystals of cassiterite. I'd actually tried to pick it up, but it must weigh well over 100 pounds. It's very, very heavy. Cassiterite is an ore of tin, which to this day is still mined for that metal. When the geologist from the State Museum in Albany was here looking over the collection, he said that he would be glad to accept that for the New York State Museum if the Georgi ever wanted to get rid of it. So it's really an unusual piece, and it's a huge piece. I'm guessing it's at least 100 pounds because it's an ore of that metal. And in the next cabinet, again, we have some really incredible crystal groups of tin ore, different types, also from Bolivia and South America. And there's some beautiful quartz and calcite crystals here, again from South America. The rarest piece in this cabinet, and the geologist from Albany read my label, and he said, "That's not what you're saying, that's not what you say it is." And I said, "Oh, yes it is." And I showed him the original label, and he had his fancy telephone there and went on it and found out that indeed this was rhodanite, and it was from Russia. And he doubted it because it's never that same pinkish color like that. It's usually really just like a solid mass of that color, nowhere near the tiny crystals that this one was. So he doubted that that was what I said it was, but Mr. Georgi had tagged right. It was rhodanite, and it's from Russia. And it's one of the minerals that was also crushed up for ore of manganese. And that's the most impressive piece in that particular cabinet. And then we have the last ones over here. And then in this cabinet, there are several minerals in here that have a name that most mineral collectors are not familiar with. Ironically, a couple of them are really rare. but there was no provenance as to where they came from. The problem there is a real mineral collector may want to have that mineral in their collection, but if there's no location in the provenance of where it came from, most mineral collectors don't want it, no matter how rare it is. They just don't want it unless it has some location as to where it actually came from. So there's a few of those in there. The most impressive item in here, up on the top shelf, is actually a diamond in Kimberlite. Kimberlite is the place where the rock that most diamonds are found in. And ironically, you'd figure any diamond in Kimberlite would be from South Africa or over there. Ironically, this one is from the mountains, Ural Mountains in Russia. And that's the most unusual piece. It's not very big, but I'm not sure how many carats it is, but that's a pretty rare piece in the fact that it came from Russia instead of South Africa or any of the other diamond mining countries. The rest of the cabinet is just more of the minerals from Bolivia and the rest of South America. And then the next piece, and probably the last piece that we're going to explain, is the one on the floor. The piece on the floor, the green mineral, is malachite, and it's one of the major minerals that they mine for copper. In the United States, the most famous copper mines that produce a green malachite like that are the ones out in Bisbee, Arizona. Ironically, this beautiful specimen here, there was no tag with it. There was a number on it, but to this day we haven't been able to come up with Mr. Georgi's book that has the numbers in it and where the minerals were collected from. So at this point, we've got this beautiful malachite specimen, but have no idea where it has come from. Our guess is probably it did come from South America. We don't think it came from Arizona. But it's a beautiful specimen, but at this point we just don't know where it's from. And again, this collection is absolutely top museum quality that you'd only find in, like I said before, the Smithsonian or the American Museum of Natural History in New York would have a collection of this quality. A lot of the specimens in this collection are unobtainable anywhere. Even with the great accessibility to minerals on the internet today, a lot of the items you see here aren't even on the internet for sale anywhere. And the Georgi Museum is just first class, and coming up we are going to have one cabinet completely dedicated to the minerals of New York State. Most people don't realize it. New York State was the top mining state in the 1800s and was one of the top states in mining until the mid-19th century. So Georgi has a great collection here.